some reports about Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. These reports have been about Paul Kagame. Paul Kagame is the president of Rwanda. I have not had much to say in regards to commentary about this issue because there was yet more information that I needed to know about relative to Paul Kagame. Now today, more information has been provided. This information is coming from various sources. One of the primary sources is Chris Black. You're going to hear this information along with just a little bit of commentary and research from myself. Paul Kagame, it appears, was complicit in the deaths of the president of Rwanda as well as the president of Burundi, according to the findings in these reports. Now, as well, the United States government was also complicit in this. At that time, the president was Bill Clinton. Now, before I get into that, I would like to say that the South African police killing of more than 37 people or minors in South Africa in the mining incident was a situation where most of these people, the autopsy show, was shot in the back. Also, another update. France is now telling the terrorists in Syria that they should form a government and that France will immediately recognize them. Now, these are the terrorists who have been terrorizing Syria for more than a year. Also, the latest report out now is that the United States has more than tripled the sale of weaponry around the world. The biggest seller of weapons around the world to kill people. And an update on Libya. The killing continues on a daily basis almost in Libya. In Tripoli, they have attacked the Sufi Muslims. They have totally torn down a mosque in that area of Tripoli. These are the terrible, terrible crimes that are continuously committed in Libya on an almost daily basis. And also, Israeli veterans are confessing that they have carried out what they call no mercy punishment of Palestinian youth. These are crimes against humanity, and they have been going on for a very, very long time. But of course, as long as the Zionists have the cover of the United States and other permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, they will do whatever they want to do. And I must also say that the earth, wind, fire, and water is punishing America in a very, very big way. The Mississippi River is still extremely low on water. The barges, many of them cannot travel up and down that river carrying goods to markets. America is in trouble, serious trouble, and it's going to get worse. Also, American and NATO forces continuously are being killed by Afghani military forces in Afghanistan. This is continuously happening. It is not getting better there. It is getting worse. It is a war that I have said that America will never win. Now, the article relative to Paul Kagame, the United States, and a trail of dead bodies left behind who were to serve as witnesses to what really happened in Rwanda when the plane that Rwanda's president and Burundi's president were flying on was shot down. There were also French officials on that plane. So in a way, it was a showdown between the United States and France. Yes, even among criminals, they fight among each other sometimes. Did the United States government and Rwanda's Paul Kagame trigger Rwanda's genocide? This is based upon a document by Chris Black and A. Meziev entitled DRC and International Criminal Court, New Development. On August 17th, counsel for several Rwandan and Congolese political and civil organizations delivered a complaint to the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court concerning crimes allegedly committed by the current president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, which are within the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. The complaint filed included United Nations reports dating back to 1994 concerning Kagame's mass atrocities in Rwanda and Congo. These reports, two of which were suppressed by the United Nations and the prosecutors of the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, are just a small sample of the extensive and overwhelming evidence which exists in the possession of the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda prosecutors that establish that serious crimes against humanity and war crimes were committed by Kagame and his Ugandan and Western allies in Rwanda and Congo since 1990. The reports filed include the report of Robert Gersony of USAID, who was tasked by the United Nations Refugee Agency in later part of 1994 with determining the conditions for the return of Hutu refugees who had fled the Rwanda Patriotic Front's forces into then Zaire that year. In his October 1994 report, Gersony stated that the RPF forces committed systematic and sustained massacres of Hutu civilians beginning in April 1994 and that they were continuing. The United Nations Refugee Agency marked this report confidential and it was suppressed. However, it was placed in the hands of the prosecutor at the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, but the various prosecutors there have also kept it suppressed and even denied its existence. The second report is that of Michael Horrigan, the Australian lawyer and lead investigator for Louis Arbour. When she was prosecutor, she tasked him with the mission of determining who had assassinated the Hutu presidents of Rwanda and Burundi and the Rwandan Army Chief of Staff on April 6, 1994, when their plane was shot down over Kigali. She did so thinking those responsible were Hutu extremists. However, Horrigan learned and had the documentary evidence and testimony to prove it, that the Zero network of the RPF shot down the plane on Kagame's orders with the help of a foreign power. When Horrigan presented this evidence to Arbour, she ordered the investigation terminated and the file handed over to her. No further action has been taken on this evidence since. There is evidence that she stopped the investigation on the orders of the American government. That would be Bill Clinton at that time. This had three consequences. It hid the truth of who was responsible for the events in Rwanda in 1994 from the world. It made Louis Arbour an accessory to mass murder, and at the same time, it established her value as a cooperative asset that the United States of America could use in the aggression against Yugoslavia in 1999 when she was told by Bill Clinton to prevent negotiations and prolong the war by charging President Milosevic with false accusations of crimes against humanity. I will shortly come back to the document written by Chris Black in a moment, but however, I want to now deal with an affidavit of Michael Andrew Horrigan, which is dated November 27th, 2006. I, Michael Andrew Horrigan, lawyer of 61-63 Currington Street, Adelaide 5000,
in the state of South Australia, solicitor, make oath and say as follows. Number 1, I am a qualified legal practitioner in the state of South Australia. I was also a former police detective before completing a law degree in 1995, after which time I took up a post as a Crown prosecutor with the Director of Public Prosecution, known as DPP. Number 2, in April 1996, I left the DPP in Adelaide and took up a position as an investigator with the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. Number 3, soon after my arrival in Rwanda, I was made a team member in charge of a team consisting of about 20 members, and the team was to be known as the National Team. Number 4, I was directed by then Judge Richard Goldstein, who was the chief prosecutor at that time, and Judge Henri Rakotomana, who was then International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda prosecutor, and Mr. Alfonso, who was director of investigations, to focus my team's investigations on the following matters. 4.1, to investigate the criminal conduct of Colonel Theoneste Bagasora and then locate and arrest him. 4.2, to investigate the criminal conduct of Colonel Anatole Nsegeyumva and then locate and arrest him. 4.3, to investigate the murder of thousands of Rwandan elite in the first days of the genocide by the Rwandan presidential. 4.4, to identify the person or persons responsible for the fatal rocket attack on April 6, 1994, killing President Habyarimana and all others on board. Number 5, together with my investigators, we conducted investigations into these matters throughout the next year. During the course of 1996, I was called upon to brief Judge Goldstone and then his replacement judge, Louis Arbour, and other senior prosecutors on the progress of our investigations into Bogosora, Nsegeyumva, the Presidential Guard, and the rocket attack upon President Habyarimana's aircraft. Number 6, at no time did Judge Goldstone, Judge Arbour, or any other member of the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda ever indicate to me that our investigations into the downing of the President Habyarimana's aircraft were outside the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda's mandate. On the contrary, it was made clear to me that our investigations into the rocket attack upon the President's aircraft was an act of international terrorism which clearly fell within the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda's statute, Article 4, violations of Article 3, common to the Geneva Conventions, which states, Article 4, violations of Article 3, common to the Geneva Conventions and of Additional Protocol 2. The International Tribunal for Rwanda shall have the power to prosecute persons committing or ordering to be committed serious violations of Article 3, common to the Geneva Conventions of August 12, 1949, for the protection of war victims and of Additional Protocol 2 thereto of June 8, 1977. These violations shall include, but shall not be limited to, a. violence to life, health, and physical or mental well-being of persons, in particular murder, as well as cruel treatments such as torture, mutilation, or any form of corporal punishment. And then there's a B and a C. And then D, acts of terrorism. Points of focus. Number 7, I am pleased to say that the national team was successful and we achieved the following results. 7.1, we located and arrested and charged Colonel Theoneste Bogosora with genocide and crimes against humanity. 7.2, we located and arrested and charged Colonel Anatole Nsegeyumva with genocide and crimes against humanity. 7.3, we gathered evidence against senior members of the Presidential Guard in relation to the killing of the key Rwandan citizens, including but not limited to UNAMIR protected VIPs, Justice Joseph Kabarunganda, who was president of the Constitutional Court, and Vice President Lando Ndasingwa, who was the head of the Liberal Party. 7.4, in late January or early February 1997, members of the national team were approached by 3 informants, either former or serving members of the Rwandan Patriot Front, claiming direct involvement in the 1994 fatal rocket attack upon the president's aircraft. Their evidence specifically implicated the direct involvement of President Paul Kagame, members of his administration, and military.